Hello, this is ScribeMind bringing another Warcraft 3 audio commentary. This audio is going to be on a solo game on Turtle Rock, Elf versus Undead. I will be the Undead player in this game. Cherry Rain, purple, and he will be the Teal Elf Watcher. And also after this game, I will be doing 2 bonus replays. They're pretty quick, but they're going to be super secret bonus replays. Was sort of a funny ending there, so something to look forward to after this game. But the idea in this first game, the solo, is going to be sort of deception and sort of tricking your opponent. Now that was the goal as I went. It doesn't rely on me doing some super surprise cheese attack, as some people might call it. It's not like I'm doing invisible mortars or something like that, even though I'm undead. Clearly I can't do that, but the meta game, as people call it, in this matchup, first on this map, fiends are kind of common because of all the choke points, and fiends are pretty good on this map. But against elf, generally undead like to go for ghouls and then gargs a lot of times because you can try to get some damage on them with, Wisp Harass, and then, maybe try to get some archer kills at the beginning, early game, and then, go from there, either massing ghouls if you feel, you have a strong enough advantage, or just transitioning into gargoyles and, keeping up the pressure, and, Wisp Harass, and, trying to keep map control, and getting your Death Knight leveled up, and then adding a Lich and everything else as usual. But my goal in this game was to sort of show him one possible army, that I was going, and then units, and then switch quickly to a different one, and namely that would be fiends at first, and then switching to gargs. But actually, when I get to gargs, I decide that I'm going to switch again and try to go up to A-bombs. And you notice I've got the Mountain King sound effect on my phone, so that's kind of really nerdy. But anyway, so yeah, my plan is to show him fiends and then switch to gargs, and then it becomes, well, I'm going to show him gargs and then switch to A-bombs and hoping that he counters the one unit when I'm actually massing something totally different, which is actually the counter to his counter. So sort of a mind game. It sort of requires him to be a little lax on the scouting, because the faster he sees me, with slaughterhouses instead of 2 crypts pumping gargs, the faster he is going to be able to react and set himself up to counter the A-bombs. Even something as simple as positioning could make the difference. Like if he knows, I've got A-bombs, then, he might want to get his, whenever we fight, if we fight in his main, he might want to get his army behind the Ancients of War and let them tank so the archers don't get just completely massacred by the A-bombs. And, yeah, so, and especially getting something more effective to counter, maybe dots or something like that. So, and, yeah, so right now he's going to see my fiend. He's going to go for the kill here. And I'm going to try. It's kind of sloppy that I actually let him get this kill because I had the tower up. I just didn't have him at the proper spot to take advantage of the tower quite enough. Notice he just does get this kill on him. I didn't know if it was going to kill him at first, so I didn't try to hit it with the tower at the end and deny him the experience. But again, I go ahead and start another fiend. I don't know if you saw that or not, but my goal was to let him see it and then cancel it as I'm going to throw up another crypt here. You gotta be very efficient. You always want to be efficient, but definitely if you're trying to sort of surprise him, you got to get every little bit out of it, because the more you transition to stuff, different buildings like slaughterhouses from 2 crypts, or 1 crypt to 2, it's costing resources to get all these buildings. And you want to be really efficient. You can't be just wasting resources. Notice I almost got that hero kill just because I had boots of speed. Boots fairly expensive investment. Because once I get Unholy Aura, I don't really need them. But in the early game, it will help. It did help me chase him down and make him use that Moonwell. And as you notice, he's already throwing up a Protector and getting some archers. I don't know if the Fiends, he hasn't seen my 2 crypts, so he probably just knows the metagame and sort of is used to undead going for Garg harass and stuff like that. So he's already sort of setting up for the Gargs, especially with that location of the Protector. You would think, that's definitely not effective if I push him with Fiends being way back there. So, and he's sitting his archers, so he's really sort of slowing his creeping a bit to be prepared for any sort of harass, Garg specifically. So I notice I'm throwing up, I've got 2 crypts. I'm throwing up a slaughterhouse actually already. And yeah, so here I see these huntresses. I'm going to go ahead and harass them a bit. I do a little damage on there, the huntress, and but it has the main point of showing him, hey, I've got these 2 Gargs, so fast, I've probably got 2 crypts, maybe massing Gargs. So that was the goal. But I'm actually only going to make those 2. I'm going to go ahead and unsummon the second crypt. And yeah, I'm going to try to transition as quickly as possible to tier 3 for the A-bombs. And we look over here. We notice he is going to go ahead and throw up a second Protector, which is sort of somewhat of a common thing people do to try to fend off, Garg harass. And yeah, so he's going to leave these archers here again. He's getting the range upgrade. Now, right now is the window where I'm sort of weakest. Again, I'm sort of, the transition and having to tech all the way up to tier 3 is leaving me rather behind in terms of map control and army size. I've only got these 2 Gargs really to creep around with. Rod and Necromancy, really helpful against the smaller creeps here. But again, right now he could be expanding, and there'd be not a lot I could do to stop it, honestly, with only this small army. Now, pushing my base is another matter. I can pretty much hold this easily with the towers and the meat wagons, I think. Even if he had, say, Ballista or something, I still think it would be tough to push. Not the best use of his time, probably. He should be, if he expanded right now, I think somewhere, I think he would be pretty well off. But he doesn't. And he doesn't scout, so he doesn't know what exactly I'm doing. He doesn't even know I have slaughterhouses. He's not sure if I'm expanding. Probably doesn't expect it. Definitely since he doesn't go anywhere near the most likely expansion spot, which is probably this spawn location here. But, all he needs to do is scout these A-bombs. It will help him immensely if he would have scouted, at least scouted the slaughterhouses. But the A-bomb specifically would have really helped him out to know what to build, because right now he's just got a bunch of archers, a few huntresses, some dryads, which archers and dryads definitely not ideal against A-bombs and meat wagons, and some fiends. And yeah, so right now I've only got 50 food. He's at 60, and he's gonna pretty much push ahead of me pretty much for the rest of the game until we have a battle. Now, right now, in this moment, I'm thinking maybe I should push, but I am also almost done with this disease cloud upgrade, which I think is going to be pretty strong. So I decide, and also my hero, my Dreadlord is only level 1, and I've only got the aura, so I don't have a spell to utilize the mana. So I go ahead and decide to creep this camp, which is going to have a few advantages. One is it's going to be leveling me up to 2 with a Dreadlord. The other is it's going to drop a really good item, Roar Scroll. That's going to be very good. And my Disease Cloud is going to finish before the push. I don't want to... a big thing, if you're going to sort of deceive your opponent and try to transition into something quickly that he's unprepared for, like I said, is the element of surprise. You only get one shot at it. Once he sees it, it's not going to be a surprise anymore. And so again, the longer you can keep it a secret, usually the better. But again, you only have a certain window to take advantage of A-bombs against Elf usually. If he goes into Chimera just for any reason, it's going to be bad news. But so as you can see with this battle, he actually has a bigger army than me by a little bit, and we're fighting in his main, but he is all out of position. He had hero level advantages, of one level each hero. He was 4 and 3 against 3 and 2. He's got 2/2 upgrades on his archers and huntresses, and he had that armor scroll, which is kind of canceling out my roar scroll a little bit. But he has dryad, so they don't actually get the advantage of the armor. But it didn't really matter because the unit type was a lot of my units were A-bombs, and those pretty much annihilate archers, especially with disease cloud and positioning. Plus, I had 2 rods of necromancy, which again are popping out skeletons, which are great against archers as well. He could quickly detonate them, but that's going to cost him wisps. And we look, he is down to 26 food. I'm still at 48. And I got ahead quickly. His heroes are all damaged. I had a heal scroll in addition to the roar scroll. So, that was pretty much the decisive battle. Again, that came down to him not scouting, him maybe, being deceived a little bit, seeing the Gargs and the Fiends. And, yeah, so you might try to transition. I mean, clearly, you want to be dynamic, and you want to try to get the best unit to counter your opponent. But sometimes deception can help you do that. Sometimes going out of the box can help you, since he was probably expecting the more standard gargoyle strategy. And yeah, he probably would have been better off if I would have went Gargs. Now, if we look at the score, it doesn't look all that lopsided. He actually killed more units than me. The hero kills I got were at the end of the game, so it wasn't like, he lost 2 heroes and that was, what cost him. Really, it was the unit choice and positioning that sort of cost him the game. And maybe he didn't quite take advantage of, waiting around the archers in his main to counter. The Gargs that never came was probably helped him, help me, because he didn't really take advantage quite as much as he could have of the map control that he did have before I got tier 3. So again, that's a strategy you might try. It's kind of fun to do when it works. Sometimes it doesn't always work. You want to pick the right units if you're going to surprise somebody. But like as we saw in the other audio commentary, mass destroyers, surprising him with that, the human player with that, was super effective, and pretty much he A-clicked over his opponent, Jake did. So now here comes the bonus replays. These are going to be 4v4 games, and one reason that it's going to be a 4v4 game is what actually happens, and I'm trying to highlight. So in 4v4, you're going to have, I'm going to be the elf player in both of these, and elf player in both these replays, Recon, kind of appropriately named, because the main thing I want to show you is the power of scouting, especially in 4v4. In solo, it's a little bit less, I'd say a little less dynamic, maybe in terms of unit combination, hero choice, etc. A lot of cookie cutting going on, for good reason, I guess, but in the matchups. But, in 4v4, scouting, there's so many other players, 4 opponents, there's a lot of things, 4 different spawn locations that they could be at, so it could change everything if, you attack the wrong base, you have the wrong, you're fighting the wrong army. Maybe your army is better against orc, or maybe better against human, etc., etc. But now if you look at their players, they have one guy who is AFK. and one of them has already left, probably because the guy's AFK. But so yeah, he's AFK here, and we're gonna go ahead and I scout him. As I wisp scout immediately. I like to wisp scout as quick as possible, especially in fours, because it helps you. You won't probably, all the bases except for this last one actually didn't have anything to really get a kill on my wisp. Now if his Death Knight could have, if he had got him, he could have hit him and coiled him down, but I was able to see pretty much where and what the opponents were doing. This human is probably going for footman. No blacksmith. This human was probably going to go for rifleman, but he left. And yeah, so scouting is incredibly valuable in every game type, but specifically 4v4, because all I had to do was scout this guy, and that pretty much killed their morale. Anybody who several of the players who were going to play on, despite the AFK guy, once I scouted him and said LOL, then they just immediately left. They don't know what is going on the other side of the map. We could have backstabbers, we could have just terrible players, what have you. We could have our own AFK guy, but they didn't know, they didn't scout, and they left. So yeah, that's one thing, maybe not give up so quickly before you scout, because that alone is not always game deciding. Again, clearly it's gonna be a big obstacle overcoming an AFK guy, but it can be done. You don't always know the other team doesn't have some issues going on. Like in this game, Teal actually tried to Ancient War creep this camp, but he didn't have enough units to do it, and he lost the Ancient War, so he made a huge mistake. He's only got the one archer, and now he's just starting to get more archers at his main, and he's teching, so fairly weak. A push might have been strong somewhere. Red is kind of looking like, what is Red doing? He doesn't have any units that I immediately see. He's got all these workers harvesting wood. He's going to go for a blood mage. I mean, this just looks kind of ridiculous. And he's going to try to tower up here, since we know there's an AFK guy. So this game is pretty much, they had a bunch of people leave once I saw he was AFK. And that was the main point I wanted to show, is not only do you get the general advantages of scouting that you always have, seeing where your opponents are, what they might be making, etc., but you can stumble upon something like an AFK opponent, which can change everything. I mean, just me seeing it made like their whole team leave. So that was pretty very useful. Quick game. They didn't leave immediately, but they left pretty soon, right after I scouted it. And yeah, so here we're going to have another situation where scouting is important, and I believe it's actually the same guy, which is terrible, but I think this game happened right after the other one, so I was sort of lucky to have this guy on the other team. But so I'm recon again, elf again, and going to be scouting immediately once again. So yeah, so right now if we look at my allies, we have an AFK orc. Now if we look at their allies, we have that same guy who was AFK once again. I don't know if he's AFK or if he's doing that on purpose, or what the deal is, but whatever the case is, we both are in the same boat. We both have an orc ally who is doing nothing, teal and pink respectively. But the difference is, I am going to scout their AFK guy like 1 minute into the game. Now this was lucky that I hit this spawn first, but again, I was going to see him, within the first 3 minutes probably. I was going to come across their spawn AFK guy, and I go back, and they just start leaving immediately. Again, that's sort of, you might say, oh, they're just saving time. They're most likely going to lose because they've got the AFK guy. But we have an AFK guy as well. So, it depends on how much you want to win. Do you want to try to play through it it's going to be an uphill battle, especially if the opponents don't have an AFK guy. But you know, you have no idea without scouting what's going on the other team. So yeah, the faster you can see, you know, what your opponent is doing, the faster you can find out if there's an AFK opponent, the better, because you know, it turned a probable win. You know, it turned an advantage into a game deciding advantage. Again, if this game drew out, you know, if I didn't scout and, you know, we just did the normal sort of creep, expand, whatever, you know, maybe pink comes back. Maybe he notices that he's in a game. You know, maybe teal never does. You know, maybe one of our players is just awful, and you know, he makes enough mistakes to put the other team ahead. You know, he feeds them experience. You know, they make the wrong units. They don't TP. You know, maybe the other team can knock out bases with bat riders or something crazy. You know, they do some cheese tactic and they get the advantage. I mean, anything can happen over the course of a game, and especially with so many different players. You know, you don't know who's good and who's bad sometimes. So, you know, it's very important to scout, because as you can see, this game wasn't even 3 minutes long, and all I had to do was scout. And again, I was sort of lucky that the players, you know, had an AFK guy, and they didn't feel confident enough to outplay us. But you know, if they would have done their own scouting, they might have seen our AFK guy and said, okay, well, it might not be over yet, and then and then it wouldn't have been over. You know, they wouldn't have started to leave, and you know, it could have went either way. You know, you never know what could happen. And yeah, so that's sort of the takeaway in those bonus replays, especially in 4v4. It is crucial. Oftentimes, it can be a game-deciding move just to scout your opponent. Again, and that happens in solo as well. Like a lot of the replay or the commentaries that I've done, you know, the last one was 2 replays where one player, Jake, expanded, and the other player never really scouted it. And so yeah, you know, then he could do pretty much whatever he wants with that extra income, and have a great chance to win. And so that's pretty much what happened. So, you know, and in this last replay, or on this solo replay, the guy didn't scout enough, and you know, then he was caught out with archers against abominations, and we saw how that worked out. So I hope these replays were somewhat informative, fairly entertaining. You know, it's not often you get to go force a win in under 3 minutes by just simply sending out a wisp. I mean, if only every game were that easy, right? You know, Elf would be the best. No, but you can do it with any race. You know, clearly scouting, scouting with a wisp is pretty good, since you don't have to come all the way back to your main. And you know, if they're gonna kill it, you know, once you get to that, usually they don't have enough units to really kill it until you get to the last base or two, and in that case, you know, you might have to detonate it. But again, you detonate it, you're taking away their mana, so you know, it's not not just a pure loss. Whereas, you know, if you had a footman or a peasant, militia, peon, or a ghoul scout or acolyte, you know, if they come across it, then they can, you know, you can't detonate it, you can't deny them that experience, and you know, you're not going to be able to harvest all the way away from your base. Whereas Elf get that advantage. They can just stick that wisp on a tree, and you know, then worst comes to worst, they detonate it. Or even if they forget to detonate, if they just lose it, you know, it's 60 gold, you know, not that much experience, not that big of a deal, you know. So anyway, hope these were enjoyable for you, and Scrymind out.